Once again, the SHOPO Hour is underway. In studio with us is Brother Nick, who is on mic number 1. Good morning. And it's a pleasure. Let me try that again. We all there?
Good morning, sir.
Ah! There it is. Do you hear that voice? Man, goodness gracious.
Oh.
I mean, he sounds just like so. Man. Kind of Barry White.
Oh, okay.
No?
No.
Let's get the candles out.
Yeah, I'm more of a Gordon MacRae, I think.
Gordon.
Yeah.
Wow. It's the House of the Arcane. I love the reference. I love it. And Brother Mark in studio.
Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Brother Steve has a photo shoot.
Yeah.
For Victoria's Secrets.
Oh, I thought it was Playgirl. But, I don't know.
No. Thankfully, the legislature passed that bill, authored by a guy named Bill. Anyway, Brother Steve, thinking of you on assignment. Always thinking of Brother Bobby as well. But, gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking time today. It's kind of a 4-day-ish weekend, yes?
Yeah.
Tomorrow is?
Tomorrow, each day, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed the roadways were pretty mellow.
Yeah, good.
Coming in and pretty chill. But that said, we have stuff. And I'll turn to headlines to begin with. Right out of the gate, I played the news package from HNN pertaining to Chinatown. Now, the package and the reports were of those businesses. Right by Hawaii Theater was one where they're lamenting when they come in the morning or whatever, there's damages, etc. And there was surveillance cameras early Sunday morning, a brawl right on Bethel next to the Hawaii Theater. It was a good one. Numerous people, etc. And living in the area, I know there are some places that serve cocktails, actually quite a few in a very small, the density, pretty good. And so businesses were going, we really need some help because we come into work the next morning, glass shattered, all kinds. Anyhow, I'd hate to have this be the new perception of Chinatown, that it's on the backslide from the forward progress that has been made. Love to get your thoughts, not just this particular story, but the reality of Chinatown. Brother Nick, will you start?
So I think, as we all know, the mayor's office and the police department have been putting a lot of emphasis in Chinatown in the last 12 months or so. Additional patrols. We plug in a lot of resources there to try and combat the situation. A lot of it is geared more towards nuisance regarding residentially challenged or homeless people, and trying to get them better resources for mental health issues, trying to get them off the street and placed into housing, and then also to address the delinquents of the bunch that are just repeat criminal offenders. Mm-hmm. That's kind of specific and narrow towards that specific problem, though. I think what you're seeing here, I would compare it in Major. You can probably remember about 15 years or so ago, the Waikiki Trade Center, when it had a bunch of bars in it, and the complaint was that it was oversaturated with establishments that had liquor permits that were serving till 4 a.m, and you had all these ancillary effects of property crime in the parking lots, brawls out front, brawls in the building, and so on and so forth. And I remember that was the common complaint from the hotels and the businesses down there. That geez, on the weekends especially, we're having all of this overflow rowdiness from these establishments that are serving booze in this small area. We were plugged in. I remember Friday and Saturday nights they would send us down there in mass, and
we had a post.
Yeah, we had posts, and we would stand outside almost in a picket line and just wait for the problems to come out with cars lined up so that we could put the suspects in and get them out quickly. Yeah,
and it got even worse when they passed a smoking law. right? No smoking inside, right?
Oh,
so everybody
right.
comes out to smoke.
Yeah.
And they're all liquored up, and not a good combination. You know?
Ah,
So
tough.
yeah.
But see, this is my take, is that, and I love our purveyors of nightclubs, bars, restaurants that serve. Number one, got to do a better job of cutting people off. Just got to do it. Second of all, you should have your own security. Have someone posted. I know some have quote-unquote bouncers, but I mean, maybe even you do a hui and hire for private security in an area like downtown, in Chinatown, where you have the bars that are on Hotel Street, come up New Guano, and even tucked behind on 4th Street Mall, kind of that area, to self-monitor so you can alleviate, because HPD, again, cannot literally be everywhere. You kind of got to take stuff on yourself, Mark.
The problem with security is there's only so much they can do also.
True that.
Right? And then, you're putting another expense on the business, which is hard to run a business to begin with.
True
here,
that.
Right? So this is what I don't get about this place. And I'm just talking this country, not even our state, right?
Mm-hmm.
I go abroad, and literally there's a couple places that I've went. There's literally thousands of bars, and on these streets there's bar after bar after bar.
Yeah.
People drinking, but you don't get what's going on. You don't get these guys getting out of control.
Yeah, because the rep is, if you do,
well, there you go.
you're going to get
right?
hammered.
Yeah,
even though you are hammered.
you're gonna be responsible for your actions.
Yeah, true.
So, again, where does it go to? The courts. Make these people responsible for their actions, but they're not. And then you were talking about Chinatown, right? And the mayor's trying to do what he's doing, but many, many administrations try to clean up Chinatown. So what is the common denominator? The courts aren't doing anything. We could do all we want. We could arrest these guys, and we're doing it. 10, 20, 30, 40 priors. But they're not doing it. They're kicking them right back on the street. Like, okay, yeah, I break that plate glass window, or I punch someone in the mouth. I'm not going to jail. It don't matter. I'm not going to be responsible for my actions.
Yeah.
So it's going to keep happening. I don't care how much you try to clean up that place. You got to get the judges on board. You got to get the judiciary on board,
And the prosecutor to
Yeah.
truly prosecute.
Yeah.
So, good point, Brother Nick. Thoughts?
Yeah, I have in my civilian life worked in areas where there were a saturation of bars as well. I did work in the industry for a little while, and I do remember on the busy nights, it was common for there to be tension amongst the bars, because we just expected that culturally, something was going to happen within, the patronship. You try and watch your over serving, and you try and make sure that people aren't drunk when they come in, and that if they're getting to the point where they're too tipsy, that you escort them out and get them somewhere safely so that they're on their way home and they're okay for the night. But you can't control everything, and private security, another problem with that is they're limited in their resources, and they're limited in their capacity to actually be able to affect a situation. Often from a police standpoint, we find that they're really good watchdogs, but they don't have a whole lot of teeth. And that's just because they don't have police powers, and they don't have the authority that we carry as far as our ability to insert ourselves in something like an affray or an in progress situation and actually stop it. So they're good to have, but they're not a complete solution. Chinatown does have geographic restrictions that have come into play lately, but from what I've seen, from a union standpoint, the geographic restrictions don't necessarily apply to the problem that you have, in the sense that they were created to handle other things and not just this nighttime atmosphere. Chinatown has always been kind of cosmopolitan, I think, in the last 20 or 25 years. You have the rebirth efforts, try to clean it up. You have, you remember the Friday night block parties.
Oh, yeah.
There was many attempts to rejuvenate it, and I appreciate the businesses that are there, because there's a lot of good people that want to make it a nice place and appreciate its history. But sometimes the price of doing business in a liquor establishment is that you're going to have these extra problems. So you try and do your best. Can't solve everything though.
Yeah, I didn't want to allude that there was fault or guilt or assignment of blame. It's just part of the environment. I used to work in the industry as well, and we would do our very best as a vendor or a business. But I remember back in the days, it was military and locals that were just using Waikiki as a battleground.
Yeah.
God, it was nuts back in the day.
But I tell you one thing that'll really help Chinatown, and the businesses don't want to do it because it's going to be an expense for them. The W bid, right? Waikiki Business Association. So that's what got the people in Waikiki with the yellow shirts and all that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a private entity. They're hired by the city, but the businesses have to kick in and pay for that, right? But you see a big difference. They help us out a lot. They help out the community a lot. But it is another expense for the businesses, right? Waikiki does pay it, and you see the results. It's good. The Chinatown Business Association, they don't want to pay for it. So, and that's their decision. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I know it'll guaranteed help Chinatown.
Having a physical presence is, as I was watching the video on that brawl, and it really was, I mean, there were a couple guys, and then it broadened out, but there was a pretty good crowd around. That's no bueno for anyone. It is 7:22 in the morning, News Radio, 830 KHVH. And again, thank you, Nick, for recognizing. I know the city, and there's a concerted effort, and it's much better than for all the years I've lived in town. It is so much better. These pockets tend to tarnish whatever progress is made, but it's still being made. You mentioned before about judges and the bench and enforcement. There's a story that of a young woman that was walking on the beach near Diamond Head. She was followed by an individual, and this man attacked her sexually, but not in a first degree, but was still attacked. She was still attacked. She reported. Many thanks to HPD for finding and arresting this individual again, because within the past 2 weeks, he committed an assault, sexual assault. He was taken down, booked, etc. He was captured then. He was in custody, I believe, 48 hours and released. And this woman had to endure what she had to endure because we have a cretin that's out running about.
That's the one that was the robbery, attempted sexual assault. Is that the one? Diamond Head?
Diamond Head.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so about the release on the first one, there could be a couple factors in that, right? It could be where they didn't have enough evidence or the complainant didn't want to prosecute anymore, right? That's what it sounds like. Either that or they need more for their investigation, But you don't know. We don't know the whole story behind why he was released. But, but it's not uncommon to see these victims have a suspect with multiple priors. So, again, when is this judiciary going to wake up,
But it's beyond that. I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
You got prosecutor's office, you got and then you have Department of Public Safety, and then you got the people in the big square building that refuse to support the law enforcement system. Build the damn prison, expand, provide beds, whatever you have to do, because that's what defense attorneys and that's what judges cite.
Yes.
And it's just mass exodus. What's the recidivism when we let everybody out because of COVID? I mean, that was just asinine.
Yeah, 1/3.
And so we have a multitude of issues that are a mess. Brother Nick?
I think we can all agree that common sense tells us that our local incarceration system is outdated, overcrowded, and completely flawed. And if you can't see the light here and understand that there just needs to be a complete revamp of the infrastructure for our corrections department, then you're insane. I don't know what else to say.
That is true. Very well put. 7:25 in the morning. So I'll ask this, and then we'll get to our break in a few moments. Why? Why is it that we have confronted this lackadaisical approach of prosecution and trial and incarceration for so long? This is nothing new.
I often wondered at why the people are putting up with it. The people that live here putting up with the way let me see how could I put it nicely?
Let me put my finger on the button.
Yeah. No, but I mean, how I don't know why they're putting up with keep voting for these same people that keep doing this, passing these stupid laws, right, and letting these guys out. I just don't get it. I don't understand why these people are not pissed off at all these the system the way it is now. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah. Nick?
So I think as an average person in Honolulu, you get caught up in the day-to-day so much, just trying to raise your family and get to work and make enough money to buy food and pay your rent or your mortgage, that it's easy to let these kinds of things slip by until you become a victim of a crime. And luckily, most people don't become a victim of a crime. So they're ignorant in a good way, which is great. But at the same time, for those of us who are trying our best to keep up with the situation or are actually involved in it, we see the reality of it for what it is, and it's much more alarming. I do agree that most of our politicians, personal point of view, most of our politicians have really taken no action to really try and solve any of this. I see a lot of really nice legislation, but you don't really need to have it. And the need to have legislation just seems to be getting glossed over every year.
Is there a community, city, state, where you look towards that community and say, okay, they're doing a good job. We should go along the same lines?
Well, again, personal opinion. Every time I look at Big Island, when somebody gets caught there, they're charged pretty darn quickly, and they get a pretty doggone good bail too, like a high bail. So I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
That
good. If we can cite something, would be good. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, we go back to the Peter Carlisle days when he was prosecutor. Guys were getting charged, and I mean, it was good. we were happy to get Kaneshiro out of there.
Yeah.
Because when I first came in, he was the prosecutor, and release, pending investigation, release pending investigation. Carlisle got in there, and he started to charge these guys. And he didn't mess around when the laws were passed. Like, for instance, they passed when you break into a car, right? But then we get a memo from the prosecutor. Well, we're not going to charge it unless he has so many felonies or he's been arrested so many times. Like, you're not following the law, right? And then another thing, during COVID, we would we would go to the parks, guys drinking in the park, cite them, right? A lot of them were Micronesian men and women, right? But whoever was there, we would cite. We don't care who they were, what demographic, right? But majority of those citations were thrown out. And it was cited that the prosecutor's office was saying, we don't want to prosecute crimes against the homeless, or something to that fact. As a matter of fact, I'll get the exact quote, because I remember the commander coming to me and says, all the citation, we had an operation, everything was thrown out. So...
And there we have it. That's why I thank you for coming in and sharing. I just don't believe that many of us really have an understanding what goes on behind a headline goes on behind a public statement and what the reality really is. To do all that work to focus on an issue where laws are being violated and then have one of the prongs of law enforcement say, you know what? Yeah, we're not in.
Yeah.
That's got to be brutal. It is the SHOPO Hour. Brother Nick, Brother Mark in studio with us. Brother Steve on assignment. Thinking of Brother Bobby as always. Welcome back. It is the SHOPO Hour, and Brother Steve on assignment, but Brothers Nick and Mark are in our studio. We do want to connect with you at 521-8383. And let's do so now. As a matter of fact, David is in Kapolei. And David, I want to thank you for your call and a very good morning. Aloha.
Good morning to you folks. A little bit off topic from this morning's discussion, but I think I have a general comment and would be interested in hearing response regarding, the Department of Transportation is running wonderful ads as to the motorcyclists, thanking us drivers for taking care to watch out for them and so on and so forth. But I'm wondering if the Department of Transportation shouldn't also run an advertisement aiming at motorcyclists to take care in their driving habits, because, I've had people weaving in and out. I see people weaving out, motorcyclists running maybe 90 miles an hour through down the HOV lanes. It's just, I think there needs to be a turnaround, fair play kind of advertisement there for the Department of Transportation towards the motorcyclists.
I want to thank you very much, because I'm nodding my head as you're giving us your call. David, thank you very much. Brother Mark, want to start off?
Yeah, I totally agree with him, right? I mean, it works both ways, right? Just like the jaywalking, same thing, right? Or it's both. It works both ways. Yeah, the car's got to stop, but then the people got to pay attention in a crosswalk, and the same thing with this. Yeah, cars got to watch for motorcycles. The idiots out there weaving in between the lanes and doing their little wheelies and stuff like that. Yeah, knock it off. But I got to say one thing though, right? Mm-hmm. I got a motor scooter, a Honda 150 that I use once in a while, but I don't really like to use it on these roads because, in all fairness, people do not pay attention on these damn roads over here.
Yeah.
So I only use it really fast to go, up to the stores here and there, but back roads, right?
Yep.
But I will not go on the freeway or anything. I just don't trust these drivers over here. However, when I do drive in a foreign country, I feel way safer because they're more aware. I guess because there's more motor scooters over there. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But these people, they don't pay attention. They got to pay attention more. So I'm glad DOT is putting something out.
Yep. Brother Nick?
I totally agree with the caller. Safe driving is a two-way street. If you're a motorcycle operator who's riding unsafe, you're not wearing good safety equipment, you're not really having any consideration for the drivers around you, you're speeding excessively, or worse, you're driving when you're drunk or you're high, you're causing a huge problem, and you may get into a collision. And because you're operating a vehicle that's not enclosed, the chances of you getting injured are so significantly higher, it's not funny. Mm-hmm. Work in the traffic division as an investigator now for 12, 14 months. I've seen a lot of motorcycle, moped, and bicycle collisions, high speed and low speed. Common factor amongst the motorcycle collisions, especially the fatalities, is either alcohol or speed.
It's tough, but you hear about these collisions, etc., and I think the caller brings up a good point. It's a two-way thing, because whenever you hear about a motorcycle, moped, scooter, a vehicle involved in it, well, there's two sides, because I see some of these guys as well. Oh, yeah. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. And the one that's irksome is when you're all waiting patiently for a light, and some of these guys want to just go down that narrow passageway between cars waiting, then scoot out in front or what have you. Final thing, I talked about buying Zoe a motor scooter to get to work and back. And I told her, I said, listen, you have to watch 24/7 because not everybody does. Bought her a reflective vest, so at least she's visible. But goodness, even with the bike lanes and all this other stuff, I don't.
Gotta be careful. Oh,
but gosh, it's kind of like what we started in the beginning. People.
yeah.
Come
Pay
on.
attention. Pay
Yes.
attention out there. You know?
Understand, it's precarious. You know, you're in a speeding 2 tons of metal.
Yeah.
You can do some damage there. David, thank you so very much for your call. I was wondering with our time, it's already 7:42. It is the SHOPO Hour. This may be a SHOPO question, but if you wouldn't mind, I'll direct it to Brother Nick. And that has to do with the officer who is apparently being recharged with a DUI, Maria. And it garnered a tremendous amount of attention. I'd love if you can share anything so we can hear both sides of the story.
I have to be careful,
Yeah.
just to respect her privacy and also for how things operate internally within the union.
Okay.
When a charge is dismissed by the court without prejudice, it means that the prosecutor's office has the option to refile the charges. When a court dismisses charges with prejudice, that means that the case is done and it can no longer be reintroduced or refiled. In her case, the charges were dismissed without prejudice. So the prosecutors took the opportunity to file again. One thing I will say from a union point of view is I would like to see her case compared to an average citizen's case. In other words, does the average citizen who encountered the same situation that she did, as far as whatever technicalities were there or whatever decisions were made in court to dismiss the case without prejudice, get their case automatically refiled by the prosecutor's office? Specifically, food for thought, specifically a first-time DUI offense. And I'd like to see some open-minded people out there do some research into the statistics about that. Because I think if you looked into it, you'd be pretty surprised about what happens to the average citizen who gets their DUI case dismissed without prejudice and whether or not that case is actually refiled.
Does SHOPO in any way assist with her defense, or is that outside the bounds of union membership?
We do pay, each paying member is entitled to a legal defense fund that we go into contract with. There are parameters. Not every situation meets the ability for the fund to kick in and get an attorney assigned to you. So it's on a case-by-case basis. However, in this type of situation, regardless of what happens with a criminal case, there will eventually be an administrative investigation in the department internally, and that has to do with any alleged violations of the department's standard of conduct, policy, or procedure. We will be there for the member through all of that.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. It is already 7:45. We'll take our final look at primetime traffic, but I want to set before we break is that I appreciate last week's conversation in regard to TROs. An alarming statistic reported today in regard to domestic violence. And I'll bring that up with the brothers in studio. It is the SHOPO Hour. SHOPO Hour returns yet again, going by in a blazing fashion. I want to remind you the PRP Hour returns this Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific Resource Partnership. I gleaned some statistics, and I'll actually share with the brothers in studio that the percentage of FAFSA applications being submitted is down 20%. Now, there are some procedural issues that FAFSA endured, but that's 20% fewer applications for college education and federal assistance and qualifying. So if you have a graduating senior even a junior contemplating his or her future, PRP Hour, we talk about how you can engage in a longevity of a career that is productive, industrious. It is the biggest part of our local economy projected for years to come is construction. So log on to prp-hawaii.com and you can learn more there, or join us this Friday for the PRP Hour, and we'll go through all of the information there. As I mentioned, though, kind of parallel, same thing for a career in law enforcement, is that HPD is more than ready, willing, and able to provide, again, a career that's valiant, and also remuneration is solid for you and your family.
No, especially now with the cadet program that they have, because you get out of high school, you got to be 21 to carry a firearm. However, you get out of high school when you're 18 years old, right? You come in a cadet program, start making money, and then you just roll right into it when you're 21. Yeah. So it's a great opportunity.
I think it's college is not for everybody.
Well, you can go to school at night or something,
Yeah.
Or could take a couple classes. You don't have to, you'll eventually get your degree.
Yeah.
So
anyhow, join us here and the PRP Hour. Awesome conversation. I mentioned there's a report today in regard to domestic violence that 1 in 5 are subject to domestic violence. 1 in 5. 1 in 5 individuals, not 1 in 5 families. Wow. This is statewide, 1 in 5. Now, the parameters as such, is it direct domestic abuse, or are you part of a family that's affected by the abuse of another? It's the overall presence of domestic violence, unfortunately, is rife throughout our community. We talked about TROs before. However, so I was in a DV home when I was younger. I won't refer to him. My mother's husband was an abuser. And so I was witness to, and subjected to a bit, but what went on in the home? Devastating. When you're in that situation, and I was 9 years old, you don't really know what you can do. But there are others who are adults or older, etc. You can take some action. What would you recommend if someone currently is listening that might be in an environment that is described in this report? What would you recommend one does if they find themselves there?
Well, I think there are several support mechanisms in place, domestic violence action groups, resource partners out there that you could probably Google and get a phone number for in 2 seconds. But if you don't want to go through the phone number thing, I often don't. I don't like to call and go through hoop after hoop. I like to talk in person. To be perfectly honest with you, if you called 911 non-emergency and said, listen, I have some questions to ask an officer about potential situations, we will send somebody down there, and at some point they will get there and talk to you and help you navigate your way through it. You may not necessarily be a victim of a statutory crime. However, you could be the victim of a bad relationship, or you could be the victim of something that's moving its way towards actual physical or mental violence. Right. In which case, we can try and give some counseling options as well. And, the definition of domestic violence has changed over the years. It's very different from when Major started years ago. It's different from when I started. It's gotten broader and broader over time. There's a felony type of domestic violence. There's an age-related type of domestic violence. There's a misdemeanor type of domestic violence. There's a petty misdemeanor type of domestic violence now as well. So awareness, I think, has resulted in the law catching up to the idea of it having to expand in order to address the problem better.
Mark?
Yeah, exactly what Nick said. I mean, compared to years ago, there's a lot of resources out there you can reach out to, right? No, domestic violence clearinghouse and all that stuff. And then, well, let's put this: if you're younger, you go into school, go talk to your counselor. Talk to somebody, right? And then, like Nick said, if you want to call 911, non-emergency, you don't even have to be home. Call wherever you are. Ask questions, and then, the officer or whoever responds can give you some information on that. But there's a lot of resources out there that can help.
I would just advance families.
Yeah.
You all know what's going on.
Yeah.
You hear, you see, you're in the midst. If your brother or sister as a parent and their family, and your brother or sister is causing this tumult, step in.
Yeah.
The thing that I look back that saved us when my grandparents lived fairly close, maybe about 1.5 miles away. And we would walk with my mom, my sister, and I would walk with her to leave that house, to go somewhere where we knew we'd be safe. That has to be provided within families. If you know it, if you see it, don't ignore it. Don't feel this shame that's going to be on the family if we acknowledge, because it can be an irreversible tragedy within your family if you do nothing. So you mentioned DVAC now, Domestic Violence Action Center.
Yeah.
I remember Nancy Creedman was just marvelous. Yeah. But please be aware and don't wait. Please don't wait. I have 17 other things. Do we have time in 2 minutes to cover all of that? Oh my gosh. I did jot something down. City Council approved the budget, and within they approved city budget last Wednesday. Within the appropriation for hazard pay, about $80 million was the line of the amount. Is this part of the settlement, or at least the request, or what have you?
I can tell you that there's no settlement agreement at the moment.
Oh, there's not.
We're still working towards it. There's still negotiation, and we're still accepting applications from our members for hazard pay. I would say it's a step in the right direction, and that's about all I can make as a comment.
Okay, got it.
Yep. I mean, I hope the city settles and Mayor Rick settles quickly, because it is up to him. Because all those officers out there in COVID, and I was in the thick of that too, we all deserve that. And the officers deserve that hazard pay. So let's get this thing settled. Let's get these guys their money.
We have just about a half a minute each remaining. I want to toss it over. Brother Mark, some final thoughts for today's show.
Real quick.
Yes.
I just want to know if the prosecutor's office is going to refile Lepresky's and Har's DUIs. Just a question to them.
Is there a little statute of limitations involved in that, or?
Well, I think we're still within it. So
okay,
right.
That's
just a question.
Let me just jot that down with my question. There we go, Brother Nick.
I would say, the officer's DUI case definitely raises a lot of very fair questions about how prosecution is done regarding that offense on many different levels. And again, I would encourage people out there to ask a lot of questions about it, because you'd probably be surprised what the answers are. And I'd like to end by just saying, hope everybody had a good weekend, and happy Kamehameha Day.
On that note, Brother Mark, Brother Nick, thank you as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good week.